All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about the psychology of conformity today, why we follow the crowd. And it's this powerful, often invisible force that shapes so much of our lives.
I mean, have you ever done this? You're laughing at a joke you totally didn't get just because everyone else is cracking up. It's that feeling, right? That little bit of pressure to just go along with the group, even when you're not totally sure why. It's subtle, but it's always there. So that's the core of it right there. Conformity. It's when we change our behavior or what we believe just to fit in. And look, this isn't just about some high school peer pressure thing. Nope. This is about how the people around us, or even just the idea of what people might think, can totally steer our choices.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty, because not all conformity is the same. It's not this one-size-fits-all deal. In fact, a psychologist named Herbert Kelman broke it down into 3 really distinct types, which is super interesting. And this table breaks it down perfectly. First up, you've got compliance. This is the shallow end of the pool, right? You say yes out loud, but in your head you're thinking, no way. It's totally temporary. Then there's identification. This is when you agree because you want to be part of a group, say a new employee who starts talking the company lingo. And finally, the big one, internalization. This is where you don't just agree publicly, you truly, genuinely believe it in your core. It becomes a part of you, long term.
So, the big question is, why? Why do we do this? What's the driving force behind this need to conform? Well, according to 2 psychologists, Deutsch and Girard, it really boils down to 2 fundamental human needs. And here they are. You can almost think of it as a battle between your heart and your head. On one side, you have normative social influence, or NSI. This is all about the desire to be liked. It's emotional. We're social creatures, and we hate the idea of being rejected. On the other side, you've got informational social influence, or ISI. This is all about the desire to be right. It's a cognitive thing. When a situation is confusing, we look to the group for clues, assuming they know better. And this can lead to that deep, genuine internalization.
All right, so that's the theory. But how do we know this stuff is real? Let's look at some of the classic, mind-blowing experiments that put conformity to the test.
Okay, first up is a really early one from 1932 by a guy named Jenness. It's called the bean jar experiment. Super simple. He asked people to guess how many beans were in a jar. Then he had them discuss it as a group. And guess what? Afterwards, almost everyone changed their individual answer to be closer to the group average. That's a textbook example of our desire to be right, that informational social influence in action.
Okay, that makes sense when the answer is fuzzy, right? Like guessing beans. But what happens when the group is obviously 100% undeniably wrong? Would you still go along with them? Well, that's the fascinating question a psychologist named Asch wanted to answer.
Okay, so picture this. You walk into a room for what you think is a simple vision test. You're shown a line, and next to it, 3 other lines of different lengths. Your job? Just say which of the 3 lines matches the first one. Easy, right? The answer is crystal clear. But here's the twist. You're not alone. And everyone else in the room, who, by the way, are all actors, starts giving the same, clearly wrong answer, one after another. Now it's your turn. What do you say?
The results were just staggering, 75%. Let that sink in. 3/4 of the real participants conformed to the wrong answer at least one time. It's just incredible. It shows how powerful that social pressure is. It's literally strong enough to make us question what we are seeing with our very own eyes. And if you look at the data, on average, people gave the same wrong answer as the group about 37% of the time. But really, that 75% number is the kicker. The vast majority of people, at some point, chose to go against the evidence of their own senses, just to avoid being the one person who stood out. So why? Why on earth did they do it? When Asch interviewed them later, most participants said something like this: "I did not want to be ridiculed. I didn't want to be the one to stand out." They knew the answer was wrong, but the fear of being seen as weird or different was stronger. That is our need to be liked, normative social influence, in its purest, most powerful form. Okay, so we know this pressure is real. But is it always the same, or are there things that can dial it up or down? Well, it turns out there are a few key variables that can really change the game. So a few things really matter. First, group size. The pressure really ramps up with a majority of 3 or 4 people, but after that, it kind of levels off. Then, anonymity. This is a huge one. If you can write your answer down privately instead of saying it out loud, conformity plummets. Why? Because that pressure to be liked, that NSI, just melts away. Now, what about task difficulty? Well, if the task gets harder, conformity actually goes up. That's our need to be right, ISI, kicking in. And finally, confidence. If you're an expert on the topic, you're way less likely to conform. You trust your own knowledge.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? It's this. We are all constantly navigating the pull of these two incredibly powerful and often totally invisible social needs: the need to be liked and the need to be right.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. Now that you know about these hidden forces of conformity, how will you see your own choices differently? The next time you feel that pull to go along with the crowd, maybe you'll pause and ask, am I doing this to be liked or because I truly think it's right?